Greta Thunberg. I am a 16-year-old climate activist from Sweden. I am grateful for being with you here in the USA, a nation that to many is the country of dreams. I also have a dream that governments, political parties and corporations grasp the urgency of the climate and ecological crisis and come together despite their differences as you would in an emergency and take the measures required to safeguard the conditions for a dignified life for everybody on Earth. Because then we millions of school-striking youth could go back to school. I have a dream that people in power, as well as the media, start treating this crisis like the existential emergency it is. So then I could go home to my sister Beata and my dogs, because I miss them. In fact, I have many dreams. This is the year 2019. This is not the time and place for dreams. This is the time to wake up. This is the moment in history we need to be wide awake. And yes, we need dreams. We cannot live without dreams. But there's a time and place for everything. And dreams cannot stand in the way of telling it like it is. Especially not now. And yet, wherever I go, I seem to be surrounded by fairy tales. Business leaders, elected officials, all across the political spectrum, spending their time making up and telling bedtime stories that soothe us, that make us go back to sleep. These are feel-good stories about how we are going to fix everything and how wonderful everything is going to be when we have solved everything. But the problem we are facing is not that we lack the ability to dream or to imagine a better world. The problem now is that we need to wake up. It is time to face the reality, the facts, the science. This is above all an emergency. And not just any emergency. This is the biggest crisis humanity has ever faced. Stop pretending that you, your business idea, your political party or plan will solve everything. We must realize that we don't have all the solutions yet. Far from it. Unless those solutions means that we simply stop doing certain things. Some of you may have heard that we have 12 years as from January 1st, 2018 to cut our emissions of carbon dioxide in half. But I guess that hardly any of you have heard that is for a 50% chance of staying below a 1.5 degrees Celsius of global temperature rise above pre-industrial levels. 50% chance. And these current best available scientific calculations do not include non-linear tipping points, as well as most unforeseen feedback loops, like the extremely powerful methane gas escaping from rapidly thawing Arctic permafrost, or already locked-in warming hidden by toxic air pollution, or the aspect of equity or climate justice. So, a 50% chance, a statistical flip of a coin, will most definitely not be enough. That would be impossible to morally defend. Would any one of you step onto a plane if you knew it had more than a 50% chance of crashing? More to the point, would you put your children on that flight? So where do we begin? Well, I would suggest that we start looking at Chapter 2 on page 108 in the SR 1.5 IPCC report that came out last year. Right there, it says that if we are to have a 67% chance of limiting the global temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees Celsius, we had, on January 1st, 2018, about 420 gigatons of CO2 left to emit in that carbon dioxide budget. And of course, that number is much lower today, as we emit about 42 gigatons of CO2 every year if you include land use. With today's emissions levels, that remaining budget is gone within less than 8.5 years. These numbers are not my opinions. They aren't anyone's opinions or political views. This is the current best available science. Though a great number of scientists suggest even these figures are too moderate, these are the ones that have been accepted by all nations through the IPCC. The USA is the biggest carbon polluter in history. It is also the world's #1 producer of oil. And yet, you are also the only nation in the world that has signaled your strong intention to leave the Paris Agreement. Because, quote, it was a bad deal for the USA. But how can we solve a problem that we don't even fully understand? How can we leave out the full picture and the current best available science? I believe there's a huge danger in doing so. And no matter how political the background to this crisis is, we must not allow this to continue to be a partisan political issue. The climate and ecological crisis is beyond party politics. And our main enemy right now is not our political opponents. Our main enemy now is physics. And we cannot make deals with physics. Everybody says that making sacrifices for the survival of the biosphere and to secure the living conditions for future and present generations is an impossible thing to do. Americans have indeed made great sacrifices to overcome terrible odds before. Think of the brave soldiers that rushed ashore in that first wave on Omaha Beach on D-Day. Think of Martin Luther King and the 600 other civil rights leaders who risked everything to march from Selma to Montgomery. Think of President John F. Kennedy announcing in 1962 that America would choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Perhaps it is impossible. But looking at those numbers, looking at the current best available science, then I think that is precisely what we are up against. But you must not spend all of your time dreaming or see this as some political fight to win. And you must not gamble your children's future on the flip of a coin. Instead, you must unite behind the science. You must take action. You must do the impossible, because giving up can never be an option. Thank you.